Hello everybody. I've gotten a lot of comments and emails and questions the past few months, people wanting to know my way that I create a card, my inspiration, how I put everything together. So I thought the easiest way would be to have you follow me along as I build a card and how I start my process. I'll try to make it under 10 minutes so I can fit it up on YouTube for you. So there will be a few start and stops on the video. I'm going to start today. I don't always come into my craft room with an idea. Sometimes I'll dream of a card or think of a card while I should be sleeping at night, and I'll come down and try to put that onto paper. Lots of times with my design teams I have certain stamps I need to use that week. So I usually have an image in mind when I sit down. Not always colors, not always papers that I want to use, but usually, I start off with my stamp, what stamp I want to use, and what kind of a feel I want my card to have. Today I'm actually doing a sketch, and you're getting a preview of the Magnolia Licious April sketch, design team sketch. And a lot of times I use these sketches. I love sketch challenges. A great way to get your thoughts in order and kind of figure out what you want to do. So this is a sketch that I'm going to be using today, and I've already picked out the images I want to use. These are two new Magnolia images. Actually two new Easter Magnolia images. This is Edwin with Rooster and the wagon with eggs. So I'm going to be using these. This is going to be stamped on this is going to be my square image I'm going to cut out. And I already know I want to cut Edwin out, so I've stamped him on a separate piece. So after I've picked out my image and kind of figured out what kind of card or project I'm going to make, I go through my many bins of pattern paper. And I've already chosen kind of my color scheme and papers that I want to use. These are all different from different companies. Sometimes I'll use coordinating papers, but this is kind of the color scheme I'm going to go towards. The darker reds, mustard yellows, and then I'm also going to use some craft paper. So after picking out my image, I always go and look through my paper to figure out what I want. Sometimes I know what colors I want to use, but a lot of times I just draw inspiration from seeing a particular pattern of paper or color that I want. So that would be, my second step in my process. And then I take my Copic color chart, and again, there's a link for this on my sidebar under Copic tips, but you can go to copic.com and print this out. So I would take this and kind of figure out what color Copics I want to use. I know I want to use some of these darker reds, and I picked out a few that I know I'm going to use. I really like E18 and E19 and E13. They are an earth color, but they have a lot of red in them, and the colors that I'm looking for are more rust tone. I also picked out some mustardy yellow, so I'm going to be using wire 21 and wire 23. So this would be my next step. I'm picking out my colors. Once I have that, then I would start my coloring of my images. Okay, I've colored my images, cut Edwin out. This is going to be the base that I sit him in, so I would put dimensionals on the back of here. But first I'm going to distress ink around my image, and I wanted to show you how I did that. I used the Tim Holtz Ink Essentials sponge distresser. You can buy a lot of the sponges. They come off and hook right on here, so you can I have sponges for different colors because I use this a lot. And actually one of my favorite colors to use is Stampin' Up! Creamy Caramel. It's a good mid-tone brown. And basically what you do is just ink your sponge up, and always start on your scrap paper and start just kind of small circles and rub onto your paper. And you don't want to go right onto your paper with this because the ink will be super dark. So always start off the paper, and you can go back and add more color, of course, if it's not as dark as you'd like. But I just kind of work around the image like this. Okay, so I finished inking up with my distresser. I will put a link on my blog for where you can find this, but it's really a great tool. So this is done, and now I'm going to add Flower Soft to the hay for some dimension and texture. And I've actually already made a mix of Flower Soft, and this is Sunshine Yellow, Ivory, and I think it's Nut Brown it's called. And I just made a little mix, nothing huge that I want to use. So, and I just put it in here, fluff it up, mix it up real good, and I'm going to use it on my hay. Okay, so I've already added the glue to my image, to the hay actually, with my Flower Soft glue, which again, if you've seen my Flower Soft tutorial video, is basically just Aleene's tacky glue that you can get at any craft store or online. I think this was like $2. I just happen to have one of these, but it's the same exact glue. So I've already gone and applied it. So now I'm going to take my Flower Soft and just sprinkle over the glue. I didn't want a lot on here. I just want to add a little bit of texture since I have so many brown tones. Tap off, and I usually do this a couple times. Make sure I've covered everything really well. Pressing lightly. You don't want to smush it, just kind of make sure it's adhered. Okay, so I've finished adding my Flower Soft, and I'm going to let that dry, and I finished distressing the edges, and now I'm going to matte it in a couple colors, a rust and probably a gold. But I'm going to wait for the Flower Soft to dry before I do that, and then I will come back and attach Edwin. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut my layers, matted them the way that I want. I don't glue anything down until I know that I like my layout, I like my embellishments. And again, this was the sketch, so I have not glued these layers down. I did glue and matte this particular part of my layout, and I've matted and glued my main image, and Edwin is popped up on dimensionals. So I'll probably go ahead and add my sentiment up here. I'm definitely going to add some diamond glaze to my eggs so they're a little shinier. And I like to use raffia a lot. You can get a big bag for like $2 at Michael's. So I might, I'm probably going to use this in some way. And I'll probably add a couple buttons or something round since everything's so square and linear. I always like to have a couple different shapes in my image. So I'll probably put a couple buttons here. And you'll see this finished card on April 1st. So that just kind of goes through my thought process and how I start my card from start to finish. And I pretty much do those steps every time as far as picking out my stamp, then going and picking out my pattern paper, and then using my Copic color chart to go through and pick out the colors that I want, coloring my image, and then building my layout. So I hope you might have gleaned a little bit of information from this tutorial, and thanks for stopping by.